Welcome back, everyone, to Plan Life Right. I'm Kevin Ross here with my co host, Matt Floyd. I want everyone to picture this: cities are dark, streets are empty, the factory gates are locked, millions are out of work, not from a war, not from a pandemic, but from something even more dangerous, an economic war that's tearing through the global economy.
Wait, Kevin, are you talking about China and the Tariff wars right now?
We are, Matt, and here's the kicker. This isn't their problem. This is an our problem. When the world's biggest factories start shutting down, the fallout doesn't just stop at their borders.
All right, you got my attention. I'm going to ask the questions that you were probably all thinking, and I promise I'll do my best to keep Kevin from getting too nerdy on us. Kevin, what kind of fallout are we talking about here?
Well, I'm talking about lost jobs, rising prices, supply chains collapsing, retirement accounts are bleeding. This trade war isn't just a political chess match. It's a slow motion crash. It's going to hit potentially every household, every business, and it's already started.
Okay, so this sounds way bigger than what the headlines are saying.
I think it's way bigger. And if you're not preparing for it, you're going to feel it where it hurts the most. You're in your wallet, maybe your job, or potentially your
All
future.
right, man, let's go. I need to hear this.
So today we're going to pull back the curtain on the U.S. China trade war, what it really means, who's really winning, and how you can protect yourself before the next domino falls. So, Matt, I want you to think about this. I want you to picture this. So, you're standing in an industrial city in China. Streets you once couldn't cross without weaving through the crowds. They're now empty. The noodle stands are shuttered. The neon signs are dark. The stores, they're locked up. Even the air feels still. It's like life just drained out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're describing a ghost town.
That's exactly what it is. And here's why. These workers who used to grab a quick meal after work or before work after their factory shift, they're gone. They've been laid off, millions of them. Entire factories are shut down because the world, especially America, stopped buying.
And this is because of the tariffs, right?
Yep. America, a lot of people don't. America buys about 1/6 of everything China exports. That's huge. But with these tariffs raised 125 to 145%, Chinese prices have really kind of got priced right out of the market. And so suddenly the demand dries up because the price is too high. So the orders stop. And then the production lines, they begin to fall silent.
And that's not localized to that one factory. That kinda shuts down the whole ecosystem.
That's exactly. So I want you to think about this. So when a factory closes or when factories close, it's not just the workers inside that suffer. It's the guys that are delivering those lunch boxes, that the shops that are selling the work boots, the bus driver running that route. The entire local economy collapses, kind of like a house of cards.
Yeah, so, I mean, we always think of this in numbers, but those are, peoples, families, towns. This country got a taste of that on a much smaller level in Manhattan in
Right.
9/11,
That's right.
when the towers fell and all those buildings were all the companies had to move out and go do business elsewhere. The deli right around the corner that used to sell 1,000 sandwiches a day, not in business, gone. The dry cleaner, the tailor, all those businesses that thrived because of the people showing up to work had no
Gone.
more customers, and
Yeah.
it shut them all down.
Right. I want we're not just talking about small numbers here. I mean,
Right.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bassett said 10 million Chinese workers lost their jobs in a matter of weeks, and it could easily double. He said in the next coming months.
And that's catastrophic. Millions. That's catastrophic.
It is. I think that it could be even worse than catastrophic if there is such a thing. It's destabilizing, because here's what people miss: China's leaders, they aren't just scared of an economic slowdown. I think they're afraid of what could happen next.
Like protests?
Yeah, like everything that the media, that most of the media outlets in China say that like what we're not hearing from our media outlets is that China's unemployment rate is already greater than 10%. And that's before the tariffs hit. So there was already slowdown over the last couple of years. It hasn't been reported on. And probably because China, has been keeping that, under
Right.
wraps. But that's happened. And now you're adding tens of more millions of people in the unemployment lines because of the tariffs. So that's a recipe for unrest. You can't keep millions frustrated. You got hungry people. You can't keep these hungry people quiet forever.
Right. And they're already feeling that pressure.
Absolutely. Publicly, their officials say things like, "We can survive eating grass," but behind closed doors, I think they're terrified. They're terrified of empty streets turning into angry crowds, terrified of the world's factories becoming world's powder keg.
So, so it's not just an economic problem, it's a political and a social time bomb too.
Exactly. And here's what matters to us. When a giant economy starts cracking, it doesn't just collapse inward, it sends shockwaves outward. So these ripples will hit supply chains, the prices, availability, and potentially even affect your investments. So if you're not watching, you won't see it coming until it's in your backyard. And our markets, I think, have been pricing this in. I mean, just look at the volatility that we've had in the marketplace the last couple of
Right.
months. It's not going away.
Right.
So Matt, here's what's crazy. China's leaders, they're talking tough. You got Xi Jinping's ally. He literally said these Chinese people could survive a year eating grass.
Yeah, grass. I mean, I hope that's a metaphor.
Yeah, maybe. But here's the truth: no economy survives on grass alone, right? Because the bravado, they're bleeding. Inflation's negative, which is that means they're in
Deflation.
deflation, right? Consumers demand they're shrinking, their GDP is sliding backwards, the factories are quiet or shuttered, ports are stacked with unsold goods, and every day this trade war drags on, China is running out of oxygen.
And it's not just us. We're not the only bad guys out there hitting them with tariffs. Other countries are starting to follow suit as well.
Exactly. You got countries like India, Vietnam, Indonesia. They're raising their barriers as well, trying to protect their own industries. China's losing export channels left and right. People aren't really realizing that, I don't think. And guess what? You've got major companies that are jumping ship that have always relied on China, and now
Mhm.
they're like, we've got to make some alternative solutions. And what they're doing is they're setting up factories in Vietnam and Mexico, the Philippines, Indonesia.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's huge because it's not just that they're leaving China; they're kind of redrawing the map, like of
That's
where things are
yes,
made and how they're distributed around the world.
exactly right. I think I think here's the wild card. If you're moving out of China, so you're a manufacturer that's always reliant, and you're moving out of China, you've got a choice here. So do you chase the lowest price, which has always kind of been the case for the last 20 years, or better quality? So China's reputation, cheap, mass production, quantity over quality. But these new players, I think they're going to be competing on both fronts.
So, do you think the quality is going to go up if more stuff's made in places like Vietnam or India?
Honestly, I hope so. I think China's low cost came at the expense of quality control. But countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, they got a chance to reset, build smarter, leaner, maybe even better. It might not be immediate, but long term, we could see higher quality at prices that stay competitive.
Right. So maybe not dirt cheap like China, but maybe it's worth a little bit, and maybe worth paying a little bit more to get something that lasts a little bit longer.
That's kind of like when you get your kid this new toy that they wanted. It was built in China, and they play for it for 30 minutes, and it's broken.
Yeah, it doesn't even make it past Christmas Day.
Exactly. So now you just got a piece of junk that's laying in the toy room. So I think that there's a strategic upgrade that can happen for these companies. Nobody really wants a fragile supply chain and shoddy products, and that's what we've lived with here.
Yeah, because we just didn't have an alternative, but now it seems an alternative is making itself kind of
Us.
apparent.
So, why you got China scrambling, the US, they're not I don't think they're pulling punches here. These tariffs just aren't taxes. I think they're pressure tactics. At 145%, it's a financial chokehold. And so I think Washington's betting that China's need for US markets is stronger than its pride. Again, it's one-sixth of all the countries out there. We're
Right.
buying one-sixth of them.
So we're
It's
basically
huge.
trying to squeeze China until they tap out. And I mean, it kind of looks like that bet's paying off.
Exactly. I think Washington is betting that China's need for access to the US markets outweighs its pride. And so far, I think that bet is paying off. China's blinked. They quietly China created what's called their little white list, and what that does is it exempts critical imports that they need that they can't survive without. So they took those away. They took those tariffs away from those needs, that's a crack in the armor.
Right.
It's them saying, we can't believe we can't keep up without something breaking.
Right. So, but that whitelist thing, would you say that's them surrendering or is it they're just playing it smart?
Now that's the $1,000,000 question. Some say it's strategic, targeting relief to stop the bleeding without losing face. But, here's, I think, the uncomfortable truth. If your tariffs are sustainable, you don't need emergency
Right.
exemptions. And I think this white list, it isn't a sign of control. I think it's a sign of cracks forming in the wall. I don't think it's strength. I think it's damage control.
And while they're patching holes, the US is watching, kind of waiting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, like I said, while they're patching, the U.S. isn't just waiting. I think they're moving chess pieces around. They're signing new deals with Vietnam, with Mexico, Indonesia, India, encouraging U.S. companies to diversify. The real strategy isn't just hurting China. I think it's quietly building an alternative supply chain that cuts China out of the loop or partially out of the loop, and that's big. It's actually better for the U.S. in the long run.
So it's not a fight to hurt China today. It's a plan to just kind of make them irrelevant tomorrow.
Yep, potentially that's it. The I think the psychological part's key here. If every time Beijing bends, every time they make an exemption or a concession, I think Washington sees that as proof that the pressure's working. This just is this just isn't a trade war. I think it's a contest of endurance, leverage, and who's willing to bleed the longest.
Well, if you're China, what's your next move?
That's the dangerous part, Matt. When you back an opponent into a corner, they can surprise you. The question is, do they double down on the nationalism or do they quietly reform? Either way, the global economy's watching, the markets are watching.
Yeah, I think we're all watching.
I think you're right. And stay tuned because more to come here, right? So let's talk about the ripple effects, because people hear trade wars and they think, oh, that's a political thing. It's not. It's a supply chain thing. And it's a cost of living thing. It's a quality of good things now
Yeah.
because we're not just relying on China. Every product that moves production to Vietnam, to India, the Philippines, here's it's really reshaping the entire price and quality equation. Here's what people don't realize, Matt, that this isn't just an economic chess match. It's a slow motion earthquake. Every supply chain shift, every tariff increase, every factory relocation, it all adds up in cost. And that cost does have to go somewhere.
All right. So walk me through that because I'm sure that's what a lot of people are scared of. Are we about to pay way more for the same old stuff?
Well, maybe. And if you listen to the mainstream media, of course, they got you freaked out. But short term, Yeah, I think we're going to see some costs there because it costs money to rebuild supply chains. Um, moving factories isn't cheap,
And there's not
right?
a lot of empty factories just sitting around in
Sitting
cities
around,
just
oh,
waiting for
Indonesia,
somebody to
like
come
we
occupy
built
them.
this factory
I mean,
hoping
maybe
you
in
guys would
Detroit
see us. Yeah, in Detroit, we could bring it
or
all
Flint,
back in
Michigan,
Detroit.
yeah.
Yeah, but you gotta rebuild infrastructure. You got to train new workers. You got to deal with startup delays. That all adds up costs. But here's the flip side: if quality improves, if products last longer, if companies diversify that risk, we're actually buying more stability in the long
Right.
run. The labor cost, the I think people don't realize, you know, that China's wages have been rising for years. Vietnam, India, the Philippines, their labor costs are still lower than that of China's.
And so it's like trading cheap junk for solid gear that doesn't break in the first year. And even though it costs more to move, they're still probably saving on their labor costs.
Exactly. And here's the bonus. These countries have something to prove. They're hungry to be known for better quality, I think. And unlike China, which built its reputation on cheap and fast, these new players, they see an opportunity to attract companies who want lower cost, fewer deficits, or fewer defects, excuse me. They don't want to be the next China. I think they want to be a better version.
Right. And probably up until now they were priced out because they were all in the middle. If you can buy a made in USA product for $10, the one made in Vietnam, $7, but the one made in China is $2. You don't even look at the $7 one because
That's
it's
right.
such a disparity. You're like, shoot, I can buy 5 of these from China. Who
That's right.
cares if they break?
That's
I'm
right.
expecting them to. And
Exactly.
we've almost come accustomed to knowing it's going to be junk if it's coming with a made in China label.
Yeah, it's kinda like the furniture that we get for $600 couch and, it lasts a year or 2. It's like they build disposable products where
Right.
back in the day, you'd buy a $2,000 Hinterton sofa and, we've still got one and it's 30 years old, but it's been reupholstered a
Right.
few times. But, why get rid of quality? You can't even find that quality.
Right, yeah. I mean, people being able to pass down furniture again from generation to
Yeah,
generation. Nobody's doing that with
yeah,
the stuff they bought, in a Black Friday sale off Amazon, $2, $8
that's
for
right.
an entertainment center because it's
Goes
not even
right
gonna
into the
not
wasteland.
gonna make it past the first movie you watch on it.
Exactly. Exactly
So,
right.
stuff's gonna last longer or it could cost more, maybe a little bit of both, you think?
Yeah, I think both, but not in the way you think. I think short-term prices, they're gonna edge up some,
Right.
but long-term, I think we could be getting better built products at prices close to what we're already paying, and so think about it, fewer returns, less warranty claims, better supply chain stability. Companies may actually save money down the road by getting fewer headaches from defective parts, thus being more profitable, which at the end of the day, that's what they're trying to get.
Alright, so you're paying a little bit more for a peace of mind.
Exactly. And the bigger impact, resilience. China's dominance made the global supply chain fragile. But when COVID hit, factories shut down, the world scrambled, the shift away from China. It's not just about tariffs, it's about de risking the global economy.
And so they're not just, companies aren't just pulling up their stakes and leaving China because of politics. They're kind of moving maybe like for survival, right?
Yeah, bingo. I think, here's the crazy part. This isn't just temporary. We're witnessing, I think, the biggest supply chain realignment in decades. And the companies that adapt the fastest, they'll dominate these next 20 years in this global trade race. And the ones who stay tied to China, I think they may be betting on a sinking ship.
And so, while everybody's arguing about tariffs, the real game is companies shifting their entire playbook behind the scenes.
Exactly. And, if you're not paying attention to that, you're not just missing the story. I think you're missing the strategy.
Right.
So Matt, here's what I think is really happening. So for decades, China was the world's factory, cheap labor, massive scale, fast turnaround. But that era, I think it's closing. You got countries like we've talked about Vietnam,
Hmm.
India, Mexico, Indonesia. They're all stepping in with their hands up saying, hey, we're great replacements. Um, they're kind of asking to be the new model,
Right. Give us a
right?
chance.
Give
Like
us
we
a
can be
chance.
different.
Yeah. And so I think with more regional production, shorter supply chains, tighter quality control, and here's the thing, these countries want to be known, I think, for better quality, not just price. They don't want the cheap junk label that China's got stuck with.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we've said it before. The best Chinese food doesn't even come from China. It
That's
comes
right.
from New York.
Exactly. And it is really good.
So are we going to see prices skyrocket though if stuff's made somewhere else?
Yeah, not necessarily because wages are still lower in Vietnam and India and the Philippines compared to China's rising costs. So the difference you might pay about the same, but you're going to get better oversight. I think you're going to get stronger materials, fewer defects. So long term, it could actually save companies money and consumers money by cutting waste and
And
returns.
that's a win-win for all of us.
It can be. But I think, it is a rebuild. It's not instant. I want everybody to know it's not instant. Every rebuild comes with bumps, delays, learning curves. The companies that adapt the fastest, like I said, they'll own the next generation of global trade.
And the ones that don't?
I think they're gonna pay for their loyalty to a broken system. And so here's the bottom line: this trade war is not just policy. It's just not headlines. It's the opening move in an economic fight that's going to redraw the global map. And whether you're ready or not, you're already on the board.
And most people don't even know that they're playing.
Exactly. So with every price hike, every job cut, every supply delay, it's all connected. And these people who win in times like these, they're the ones that have been paying attention. They're the ones that are planning their life right.
Right. So don't wait for the next headline to hit. Start asking the tough questions. Start building the right strategies.
Yeah, and if you want to, take this deeper, I want you to check out my books, "Mastering the Art of Influence." It's going to help you lead, negotiate in these uncertain times. The Customer Intelligence Guide, it shows you how to connect with people even when everything's shifting. And if you're in that financial space, Mastering the Sale of Index Universal Life Insurance will equip you with the tools to close. I guarantee it, no matter what the market.
Yeah, and if you're in sales, business, or finance, these books aren't just read. You don't just read this by the pool. This is a playbook. You kind of study it.
Yeah, so pick up a copy. Like everybody, if you could share the episode, leave us a review, like us. Keep tuning in because in this game, ignorance isn't bliss; it's expensive.